Greg, congratulations.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. And
Thank you.
I wonder if that day, now that it's, at least that part of it is over, if that was how you pictured it would go.
I think it went better than I could have expected. I knew it was going to be a special day. I knew the team was going to, do everything top notch. Their production group, their staff, the organization, they don't leave a stone unturned. They're so good at these events. And I knew it was going to be great. I think it probably even exceeded my expectations, which is saying a lot. Their attention to really making Thomas and I feel, so loved and respected and it's hard to even put into words. It means so much to my family and I, as people who are going to live here now and raise our kids in this community and be a part of this community for a long time. To have things end the way they did now with Carolina means a great deal to us. And we're looking forward to continuing to be a part of this community going forward.
Thanks.
Greg, first off, congratulations on your career. You, Thomas, Luke, Cam, you guys really all set the standard for what Panthers football should be, what it looks like on the field, in the locker room, in the community throughout the 2010s. You had Coach Rule and a couple of the current players at your ceremony today. How do you see the values and the standard of Panther football that you guys set uh, carried over to the team of today and hopefully what it's going to look like in the future?
Yeah, I think those guys you brought up, a lot of those guys we touched on, and I have to address this now, and I'm glad you gave me this opportunity. I had an entire section in my speech that I prepared that was about my relationship and how much I feel about Cam. And I know you guys who covered knew how much he meant to me. And I had a whole thing written there. And in the midst of my emotions and getting going, I sat down next to my wife and I said, "Oh my God, I forgot Cam." And as I was going through guys that have impacted my career here, Ryan Khalil is a lifelong best friend, and Luke Kuechly is a lifelong best friend, and Thomas and JJ, and Cam is at the top of that list. And it kind of haunted me since the second I sat down. I said, how did I miss the guy that I probably talked more about for 10 years? I probably talked more about that guy than anyone in my life. And I had it just, in the midst of the emotions and coming down, I was kicking myself. But those guys you mentioned, I owe so much of my career to. The friendships that we built, the good times and the bad. I to be able to, I wish they all could have been here. We had rules about how many guys we could bring, and there was a lot of restrictions and whatnot. But those guys know how much I love them, how much I care for them, how much they did for my career. Guys that I still touch base with, on a regular basis. We'll forever be friends longer than our careers together. And those guys that you mentioned and, are at the top of the list of people in my life. As far as carrying forward here, I told Coach Rule in our last meeting before I got released, and now, subsequently, even again today, I don't know him real well, but as just a fan of the Carolinas and with kids that are going to grow up and be Panther fans, I hope they find success. I hope they do well. I cheer for them. I root for them. I'm pulling for them. And that's the same thing I told him before I left, and I hope, I hope that's the case. And I know everyone in this community feels that way.
All right, let's go to David Newton for the next question.
Hey, Greg, appreciate your time. That was a great ceremony today, and a lot of heartfelt things were said. And what struck me, and I the same thing I did Thomas, what struck me was it was more about who you guys were as men, not football players. But as a football player, when you look back, what are the 2 or 3 plays that you made that are really going to stand out?
In my time here, I think at the top of the list, the play I hear the most about from the fans and people in the organization and outside the organization was the catch at the end against Seattle. I think, that more than just the catch. I said this on a radio show the other day when they brought it up. It wasn't my best route. It wasn't the most creative route. It wasn't the fastest I ever ran. It wasn't the hardest ball I ever caught. I just think it was just symbolic of kind of getting over the hump. For years we kept, chopping the wood and we kept beating the door down. And finally we got past that hump. We got over what was the marquee team, in the league, especially in the NFC, and to go on the road and beat them the way we did, coming back from 2 scores down in the fourth quarter. I think that play was just symbolic of that year, symbolic of that kind of climb through when we got here together in 11, that climb, that was when we realized, we're on to something here. So, that one stands out. I don't know. I was fortunate to catch a lot of balls and win a lot of games and all that, but it really was the memories. Sharon, I talked about in my speech, sharing that moment, pounding the drum with my son and sneaking out of the locker room to watch my daughter, do the Top Cats at halftime, running out of the tunnel and seeing my kids and my wife standing on the sideline and be able to give them a quick moment, a hug. And before I went to pregame, those are the things that I'll always remember. That, the guys, the relationships, the good times, the bad ones, we had our fair share of both. So those are the things that as I've gotten further away from it now, and, those are the things you hold on to.
I want to ask you too, you mentioned Cam, David Tepper was at the podium and said, don't worry, we're going to bring the other one back someday too. He was talking about Cam. So what do you think that would mean for Cam to one day be in a position like you are, and you think Cam wants to?
Well, he deserves it. Like I said before, I don't, the midst of emotions and trying to cover a lot of bases, he's a guy that you guys all know from covering this, covering us here for all these years. When if there's a list of people who love Cam and care for him and appreciate him, I'm at the top of it. What I've said before, he's the best thing that ever happened to my career. I don't know if I have the career I had if I didn't have those 9 years together with him. He made me a better player. We enjoyed each other as people. We were very different people. And I think that's what made it so special, what made our connection so unique. The city of Charlotte, the Carolina Panther organizations, when Cam's day is done, I don't know when that'll be, how many years from now, whatever, that'll play its course. But when that day has come, if anybody has earned the right to have a day like today to recognize all he gave to this organization and putting this organization on the map nationally, it's him, it's Luke Kuechly. It's guys, that transcended just being good football players. I mean, those guys are generational players. And, the fact that we overlapped our careers for so long, I got to enjoy today with Luke. He was here. Cam wasn't able to come, but he's a guy that has earned the right to get his send off whenever that time comes. And I know, there's 100 other guys that played with him that feel the way I do about him. And, I hope that day we can all be there and give him the send off that he deserves.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
All right, let's go to Phil Orban, followed by Elena Getzenberg.
Hey, Greg. You joked about how when you came here you didn't know which Carolina Charlotte was in, and you've become so ingrained in this community. I'm wondering, when did you kind of realize that this was going to be home, and how have you embraced this community in kind of that formative decade of your life?
Yeah, everything changed. That first offseason, the spring of 2012, we were having the twins, got that diagnosis during OTAs, kind of lived that whirlwind for a few months leading up to, them being born the next fall season. That period there from spring through the fall, and just, I touched on it in my speech, the way the community and the city wrapped their arms around us and supported us, a guy that they really didn't know well. I wasn't drafted here. I wasn't a lifer. I wasn't a guy like Thomas and them who played their whole careers, Ryan. I was a new kid. I was from a different organization, came here for one season, and, they treated me like I've spent my whole career here. And I think we realized pretty quickly going through that process that we had a really special place here. The hospital, the relationships that we have there will last a lifetime. So this community is everything that we were looking for. There was no doubt in our minds when we got back from Seattle that we were going to put our roots here, continue to raise our family, raise our kids here. And, I think this was a big step in solidifying, our family's roots being here in the Carolinas.
Hey, Greg, congratulations. I was curious, you kind of alluded to this in your speech, but when things ended the way they did last year, did you think this, did you think this moment would come still? And did it take time over the course of the past year for you to want this to happen? Or how did that kind of work for you?
Yeah, it wasn't a matter of me not wanting it. Of course, after you spend a long time somewhere and they decide that they're better off moving on without you, any guy who's played that has any ounce of pride or, whatnot, feels initially like, yeah, you're hurt, right? Why would they not want you? Why do they feel like they're better off not having you? But then, that quickly you realize it's coming. That day is going to come for everybody. It's not personal. It doesn't mean they don't like you. It doesn't mean they don't appreciate you. It's just, it's time to go in a different direction. And, went out and played in Seattle for a year and enjoyed our time and made the most of a tough situation. And then, the second Dave called me and kind of mentioned that they were putting this together, I didn't even really consider another alternative. It was something that I really thought was the right thing. I was appreciative and I was humbled that they wanted to recognize me along with Thomas and do something like today. And here we are. It came together real fast. They called me maybe a month ago, maybe 3-4 weeks, whatever it was. And, but yeah, I didn't even hesitate. It was the right thing to do. It was something that I knew at the end was the right way to kind of put a bow on my career. And here we are.
All right, guys, we got time for one more. So let's go to Joe Person before we let Greg go.
Greg, good to see you. Congrats. That was cool.
How's that Dilworth baseball going?
Brother, we're rocking.
I know JJ's, by the way, been stressing about his draft tonight. He said the commissioner's a pain in the ass.
Well, don't take them into travel ball. We are little league purists. Two things. Kidding. I'm assuming you and Kara are staying in Charlotte.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay,
yep,
good.
We're here.
And then secondly, can you take us through the discussions with Ron and Washington last year and how close that came to happening?
It was close. I mean, the three teams that it came down to were, of course, Seattle, Ron and company, all my guys, Pete, my tight end coach, RV, the trainer, everybody's there in Washington. And then, of course, McDermott and crew up in Buffalo. There's so many guys on that staff that I have great relationships with. The tight end coach that drafted me in Chicago is his tight end coach there. Dorsey, I played some of the best years of my career. Dorsey was our quarterback coach and really was instrumental in growing the tight end role and developing Cam and I's, kind of unique connection and what we were able to kind of, develop there. Eric Washington, and I can go down the line. I mean, guys from my Chicago days, guys from Panthers, just guys I've known around the league. There was a lot of strong connections there. And, I have all the respect in the world for McDermott. I think he's incredible. Bean, all of them. So it was, that was a hard decision, between those three. And, I ended up going to a place where I didn't really have any connections. I didn't really have anybody there that I knew real well. But it was an adventure that I wanted to take. It was a challenge that I was excited about. When I signed there, of course, the world wasn't turned upside down at the moment. Maybe that would have changed the decision, but I don't regret any of it. I learned a lot. It's a special place out there. They do a lot of really cool things in Seattle. The way they run their organization, the way, from the top down, they do a lot of really cool things. It wasn't the personal season that I had hoped for. Things were a little different than what I was used to, and all that being said, but I don't second guess that decision. I thought it was the best decision for me to kind of grow as a player and as a person, but it was hard calling Ron and McDermott and Bean. Those guys are guys I really care about. And it was hard to call them and say, I'm going somewhere else. It haunted me for days. It's a decision I didn't love having to make, but I made a decision that I thought was in my best interest. And, those are guys that I root for and cheer for and care about as people. Bean was the first person who ever called me when I got traded here. And I remind him of that every time we talk to him. I'm like, Bean, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even known I got traded to Carolina because no one else called me. And now he's, the big man up there calling all the shots. So I have a lot of respect for all those guys, and I wish them nothing but the best.